Hello everyone and everything, and welcome back to more Hollow Knight. In the last episode, we fought our way through the Hall of Gods here, taking down some of the toughest foes it has to offer, including the Radiant Markoth, Soul Tyrant, and Watcher Knights, among many others. And today, we are going to put those skills to use here in the fourth Pantheon, the Pantheon of the Night. However, before we do so, I real quick want to reiterate that we are sitting at 111% on completion, and after taking down this fourth Pantheon, we will be at 112, the final percentage point required for true completion. Just to reiterate, the 5 percentage points that you can earn here in Godhome are from these 4 Pantheons sitting here before us, and from picking up the God Tuner outside upon unlocking the Godseeker's Cocoon. And real fast, okay, listen. I know I said there was no way I could do all bindings on this Pantheon. Too many of the enemies in here just do too much damage. And because of only being at a third of our soul, healing 2 damage is extremely difficult. That is a commitment, and when you only have 4 masks to go around, it's just a whole lot, but I really feel like I have no reason not to try it at least once. So let's dive in.
O gods of Hallowness, graciously open the way to this greatest of pantheons. Thy voices grow closer, thy resonance draws us even higher. Pray will we, attuned will we, until that spark of divine light shines from the deepest darkness.
Well, she's done cursing us and calling us specks, so maybe she's warming up to us, I don't know. Well, starting off here, we are once again face to face with the Enraged Guardian, and we are a ways away before we actually start struggling. Now, honestly, I wouldn't even consider this challenge here if we hadn't already gotten the extra lifeblood masks unlocked for beating the other Pantheon's binding challenges. But since we have, I really feel like I might as well. Oh, we are already off to a poor start, though. I was really anticipating not getting hit by the Crystal Guardian, but that's okay. Bit by bit, we'll work our way through. Now, here's another issue. The Lost Kin, of course, makes it extremely difficult to heal, no matter what you do. Since we're still early on, the guys aren't spawning too fast, so maybe we can... maybe we'll get lucky, and... oh, shoot, maybe we won't get lucky. Who knows? Alright. Now, if I'm gonna have any hope of doing this, I am going to probably have to focus at least a little bit. So maybe talking too much isn't in my best interest, but you know, if I were gonna do that, then I wouldn't be doing a video, would I? So we're gonna keep talking anyway, and keep jumping directly into the Lost Kin's jumps. I am getting pretty lucky with the timing of his staggers, though, so maybe we'll just about pull this off. I think technically we're even weaker than we were when we first fought the Lost Kin. 13 damage is definitely low. But honestly, I feel like even though I absolutely dread dealing with Markoth... oop, that was a mistake. Nothing's gonna be harder than taking down the Collector all binding. So I think... well, I shouldn't say nothing, because at least the Collector didn't do 2 damage. Oh, drat. Do I have time? Kind of. Really? That hit me? Okay, well, maybe we just won't make it past Lost Kin, and mercifully he'll end our suffering. But until we get down to 1 HP, like we are now, I don't have too much cause for alarm. Why do you keep doing that? This is the problem that I have with the Lost Kin. If you don't take him down fast, you end up just jumping into his jumps all the time. And I don't like it, sir. Not one bit. Okay, so I said I'm gonna give this one try. We'll see how I feel. Because I want to get further than Lost Kin, at least. Okay, that time we made it through the Crystal Guardian without getting hit. And that means that I'm no longer going to be staring down Lost Kin from the back foot here, and we can at least hit him with a few more spells now that I'm not going to be trying desperately to heal, which should all around make this go a little bit smoother, if not a whole lot smoother. One thing that I am pretty glad about in terms of doing things in the order that I did is, that I didn't end up fighting the Broken Vessel and the Lost Kin back to back. Usually I would. In a casual run, I would just basically go after every single Radiant boss one after the other. And that would mean doing basically Broken Vessel and then immediately doing Lost Kin afterwards. And that doesn't work so well, because due to the drastic differences in speed between the two, the skill set that you end up using to take them both down, or basically the mindset that you need to have, is so different, which is kind of funny. So I am glad that doing things the way we did, I got the chance to basically treat them as their own individual entities, because they are. Despite having identical movesets, they both function so differently. Nice. Although, I don't have the ability to heal, but... Oh wait, no, I'm at full health. How did that happen? I could have sworn I got hit by that. Okay. No Eyes, who thankfully is in her basic form, is going to be probably the easiest of the bosses we've got to take down in this particular Pantheon. Because even if we do get hit, we have a super duper easy safe zone down in the bottom. While not 100% safe, likely to be safe at any given moment. Also got these bottom corners here, which make it pretty easy, although I'd recommend the center, just to give you more time to react to the ones coming in from the corners. I believe she also has the smallest amount of health out of every boss that we'll be fighting today. I should be using some nail arts, even though they don't make too much of a difference. They are still a bit handy and a bit dandy. It's just the charge time on them is brutal, you know? I really do think Nailmaster's Glory is a very underrated charm. Whoa. Oh, careful now. Okay, not too bad there, not too bad. We're working our way through, making our way downtown. Alright, Traitor Lord. If I don't nail this, he's basically going to be the gatekeeper on whether or not I choose to keep attempting this, because I am definitely not used to doing this fight without Mark of Pride, which does make this a little bit more difficult. And on top of that, he does do the double damage and can't be staggered, leaving no space to really safely heal. Okay, that was bad. I think I'm gonna give this one more shot before we head on before we head in the real way. That one doesn't count. Okay, we're back. We're back. So here's the problem: is like I find it much easier to go after this guy in a very aggressive way when you're down in the Hall of Gods and resetting as easy as can be. It took me about 5 minutes to get back through those first 3 bosses. And so, staying in his face like this, it's a lot more difficult for me to be as focused and on the ball as I should be in order to employ this tactic. But I'm going to be employing the heck out of it anyway. And just doing what I do here. Oh dear, I'm in the corner. I don't like that. We don't want that. Oh, okay. Alright, okay. Alright, who's 5th? I actually do not remember off the top of my head. Oh, White Defender, okay. Now, this fight, while still definitely cheesable, I don't have the... Oh, dang it. I don't have the longer nail, which I would otherwise consider necessary for this. Okay, that's fine. So, cheesing this strategy is probably not going to be as easy, but we still have the corners for some pretty simple healing, if not the easiest. So we're gonna just about, I think, still be kind of okay-ish here. If I can qualify that statement any harder, I would. Yikes. And hey, he doesn't do 2 damage, so, you know. we have just about everything I need. Okay, mister. Let's dance. Let's bounce. Let's jive. Let's... I was gonna say jiggle, but honestly, I don't think that... that works as well. Alright, we're fine. Was not expecting to completely nail that in just one cycle there, so whoops, I meant to dodge the other way, but that's fine. He is surprisingly simple, honestly. Like, taking him down Radiant is no picnic, but the sheer amount of ease that you have for healing, combined with the fact that he does not do double damage, makes this one of the easier bosses in here, for sure. I would actually probably put him only right above No Eyes in terms of the hierarchy. Oh, well, you're doing that, so I can't really heal or do much of anything here. Wow, that came all the way across the entire field. And I used just enough soul to not be able to heal. That's just very rude. Come on, dude. Work with me here just a little bit. Is it because I called you only a little bit easier than No Eyes? I'm sorry, alright? Ow, goodness. I'm falling apart here. Can't seem to get back to full... Actually, I don't really need to get back to full health, because our next stop is going to be a... Oh, even though I don't need to get back to full health, I would like to not die. But our next stop is a hot spring, so maybe... Oh, I'm completely safe here. Just need to close out the fight. We've passed his big second phase attack, so you're so close. Oh, now I'm at full health. Nice. Okay, we can start using spells again and maybe do this at a decent rate. Did I say decent? I meant still below average. Come on. I told you I did mention in my original bio of him that he does seem to target the corners at least a little bit. They're not as completely safe as they once were. But they're just safe enough that they lull you into a false sense of security. Okay, well, we made it to the halfway point. And we've got literally doubled our health in lifeblood. And our first stop here is not Markoth? I could have sworn it was Markoth next, I guess. Okay, right, alright. So we basically just need to do this fight extremely carefully if we want to have any lifeblood for dealing with Markoth, which I really do. I really do want to have that. And unfortunately, this is where the lack of soul is going to hit us the hardest. Because, of course... Yikes! We are not going to be able to completely cheese... Oh, okay. Oh, good. I got hit by the rock instead of the... Oh, there it goes. I completely lost my train of thought there. Alright, I am no longer able to concentrate. I have no... like, this guy just broke my brain. Okay, we want to have as many soul masks as possible going up against Markoth, but it looks like that's not going to happen. I said soul masks. I meant lifeblood masks, but it seems he drained me dry. So I think Markoth is most likely going to end our run here. That is, of course, unless big guy here does it first. We do have access to dealing damage with some of the falling barrels. If I remember correctly, they do 15 damage, so slightly more than our nail does here. What are you doing up there? That's not how that works. Alright, well, let's see how I do. Small mercies is, of course, the fact that Markoth is in his attuned arena here. So we do have a floor made out of floor that we can work with. And as long as I do things as slow and steady as are basically humanly possible, I should be able to at least break even on health. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to basically wail on him enough to get the soul necessary to heal, and then I'm going to wait for his whole little whirly-do shield technique, at which point I'm going to get back to my maximum masks, and then we're going to close in and repeat the process. And if I don't take damage from the nails, it'll be a miracle, because This guy is just insane, and he makes me not want to be good at games. Why am I in a corner with you? I don't like this. Get away from me. Alright, I think I have just enough time to heal a bit, because this is second phase now. Okay. Sir, could you come back down and not leave me with not enough soul to heal once you do this attack here? This is just inconvenient. Alright, and I think you know that too. Ah! Alright, we have enough to heal. Now I just gotta avoid a bit. Why does this entire fight suck? Ah! I did say last episode that I think... Oh gosh, that's just rude. Sometimes they just spawn right where you are. I did say last episode that I consider this fight on Radiant to be as difficult as is possible for the fights. And while many people will probably disagree with me on that, I should clarify and say that in terms of like the moment-to-moment skill required, come on, I just need a single hit and a single soul. Oh, there it is. Okay, yep, I'm not trying that again. That was agonizing. Okay, well, we've already got our whole default set on, so let's go ahead and give this a proper try. But, just because I am going to want to do it all eventually, let's bind our soul for now. And if I was going to do that, I probably shouldn't have put on Soul Catcher, because it actually doesn't reduce the amount of hits required down from 3, but it's not a big deal. I'll switch them when we get to the hot springs. I might as well go ahead and mention that this is one situation where the Spell Twister pretty much unequivocally outclasses the Soul Catcher, because it does make it possible to reduce the amount of hits required to do each spell down to 2. So we might as well go with that. Okay, we're back, and this is going to be pretty much night and day from how it was, because I have no qualms about taking as much damage as it takes to end this fight at a reasonable speed. Strictly speaking, if we had gotten through False Night with 4 Lifeblood Masks intact, I think I could have done it, but getting through False Night without taking damage, while also not being able to cheese him with any soul shenanigans, not something I really wanted to do. But we are on to one of my favorite boss fights in the game. I don't think I actually expressed how much I love these guys. I tend to really enjoy things that I figure out a sort of shortcut to myself. Honestly, it might surprise you guys to learn that I have not spent a lot of time perusing boss guides in preparation for this LP. In fact, I've actually pretty much never watched a how-to-beat video in regards to Hollow Knight. Pretty much every tactic you guys have heard is one that I've figured out for myself. I can't think of any exceptions off the top of my head, though I'm sure there might be one or two. But basically, being aware of how difficult the general fandom considers these guys, and figuring out that just nail pogoing on them a bunch makes them pretty easy, makes me enjoy this fight a lot more than I think most people do. But we're back up to the Soul Tyrant. And honestly, in terms of doing this Pantheon with all bindings, I genuinely believe I could do it if not for Markoth. And in all honesty, Markoth isn't even that tough of a boss. He's very simple. Everything he does is decently well telegraphed. And while there is a lot to keep track of, it's not so much that it's unreasonable to expect. I don't know why I went back into the corner there. I already knew that wasn't safe. However, maybe it's just, I think it's just me. I feel like Markoth is just an absolute pain for all the wrong not all the wrong reasons, but for all the reasons that affect me the most. I've never been especially good at just dodging a ton of projectiles while balancing pouring in damage against the thing that the projectiles are coming out of. I scraped past Cuphead when that game came out. But even though it's something that with enough time I can brute force my way through, it's not the sort of challenge that I actively seek out the way just about every other boss fight in this game is. Speaking of which...
Show reverence, O meager one. Show fear. Thou approacheth a great and terrible god. Though its worldly body be bound and defiled, the glory of its pure form endures. Ruler of this Pantheon, its endless power shall attune us to the one greater still, a god of gods. Meager one, dost thou imagine thyself the equal of this god? Dost thou imagine thyself made in its image? Thou assume a similar shape, and a deep echo within thee seems familiar. Ah, what thoughts are these? Thou so blasphemies in our mind, wretched one. Begone! We pray that the god of nothingness silence thee forever.
I knew you were warming up to me.
Thou art no god. Begone, pretender. Be silent.
I literally don't have a voice. I'm a silent protagonist.
O bound one, thy silence merely deafens us. Foolishly we fear thee, yet only by thine providence shall we find the one we seek, the god sleeping within.
Now there's a familiar face. When we fought the Hollow Knight, he was broken. By time, by infection, by will. He even aided us in our fight against him, and so that ended up being merely an echo of his full power. The Pure Vessel is many people's pick for hardest boss in this game. He takes everything that made the Hollow Knight threatening, his massive hitbox and his variety of attacks, and combines it with overwhelming speed and double damage. Suffice it to say, this boss fight is the reason I make these bios. And in his bag of tricks, he has the triple slash, the lunge, the counter stance, the jump, the silver daggers, the silver plunge, focus, and void barrage. In effect, this is not unlike a Dream rematch, and many of the attacks from the original have carried over, but all of them are more threatening in their own ways. The triple slash is once again a terrifying 3-hit combo that advances the Pure Vessel forward, covering a deceptively large area, including behind him and above him. Being safe from this attack necessitates being either very far or very high. The lunge is probably his simplest attack, being a straightforward dash along the ground like those we've seen since our first fight with Hornet. However, the combination of his size and speed makes this the most dangerous lunge in the game. The counter stance is virtually unchanged from how it functioned in the fight against the Hollow Knight, and like then, it poses very little threat if your Shade Cloak is charged. Simply dash forward as soon as you see you've triggered the counter, and you'll end up safely behind him. If your Shade Cloak isn't ready though, I'm sorry, but you're taking the hit. The jump is... okay, let me just bask in this moment for a second. Okay, this is the last time I ever have to go over a simple jump attack. And better yet, it has unique properties I get to cover. See, depending on how you go about this fight, you may never see the Pure Vessel use this attack. And that's because it exists purely as a means to counter excessive nail pogoing or other aerial strategies. The Vessel's AI seems to have a sort of timer that checks to see how long you've been in midair, and he'll only use this attack if that timer ticks past a certain point. If he does use it, he'll always target your exact position. I don't know exactly what number that timer counts up towards, but I know that it's high enough that we can avoid seeing this attack entirely just by touching the ground for at least a moment between each of his attacks. The Silver Daggers is an upgrade to his old Infectious Outburst attack. The major differences being that these all fly in straight lines, fire and move far faster, and sport these telegraphing lines that literally do not help at all unless you are significantly far away. This is one attack you practically need the Shade Cloak for. Unless you plan on spending a large portion of this fight on the opposite end of the arena from the Vessel, which, by the way, you don't, it would take superhuman reflexes to avoid this attack's various spreads consistently. So instead, just work on timing the Shade Cloak so you dash through the daggers whether they line up with your positioning or not. Be warned, since you basically need Shade Cloak to dodge both this and his counter stance, stance, it is not a good idea to try and get in too many hits on the vessel after dashing through the daggers, as this will be a time where your Shade Cloak will be on cooldown, and if he decides his next attack is counter stance, you're out of luck. So, after dashing through the daggers, just get in one attack and wait for whatever he does next. The Silver Plunge is probably his most dangerous attack, covering the majority of the stage with these spikes which raise far too high and far too quickly to be jumped over, and must be positioned between. The window between when you see their positions telegraphed and when they become giant hitboxes of death is suffocatingly tight, so, much like the daggers, it feels unreasonable to suggest trying to nail your positioning by reaction alone. The one trick you can take advantage of here is that one spike will always spawn directly in the position that the vessel's nail pierces the ground, and all the spikes are evenly spread. So, because of that, you know that the spaces directly next to the knight are going to be safe from the spikes. The issue then is that the pure vessel is kind of also there, so in order to avoid him and the spikes, you'll want to be nail pogoing on top of him. He can also begin this attack by both jumping towards you or by teleporting directly above you. But honestly, this is more of a good thing than a bad thing. Since he always targets us, he brings our somewhat safe spot directly to us. All that we have to do is make sure to avoid the plunge itself. Focus, thank goodness, does not give the vessel the ability to heal off the damage that we do, but rather is an aggressive parallel to our healing ability. He adds this attack to his lineup at 2/3 of his HP, summoning a massive circular hitbox around himself, followed by a smattering of smaller circles across the stage. This attack has both his longest windup and his longest cooldown, so once you're clear of the big circle, you can take advantage of his downtime pretty easily. Healing is possible, but risky. The smaller circles will rarely appear in the spots next to the large circle, but they still definitely can. So play those odds at your own risk. If things do go your way, you still only have time to heal one mask, so don't get greedy. Alternatively, you can launch Shade Souls at him once you're clear of the large circle, and as long as you don't get too into it, you should have plenty of time to dodge the smaller circles and whatever attack the vessel does next. And beginning at 1/3 of his HP, he'll add Void Barrage, which throws a bit of a monkey wrench into the vessel's otherwise clearly telegraphed attacks. As the windup for this attack looks a little too similar to that of the Silver Daggers, but requires a very different approach to dodging. Despite how high off the ground these Void Tendrils look, the ground is completely unsafe, so you'll have to avoid this attack by being up above. And chances are pretty good that the only safe spot is going to be behind the knight, despite him usually appearing quite far away before using this attack. You'll basically need to use both your double jump and dash to make it all the way over there, but if you make good time, he's locked into this attack for long enough that you can rack up some decent damage. Now, I definitely glossed over a few of his attacks there because I wanted to get to our game plan as fast as possible. As I said, this is the fight that inspired me to make these boss guides, and that's because when I first fought this guy, he completely overwhelmed me, and I didn't see how it was possible to beat him consistently when he seemed to have every angle covered. Then I figured out a trick to him, and now I wish to share that trick with you. Every time you hit the vessel, immediately jump away from him. The biggest problem with his suite of attacks is that they are too wide and frequent to reliably dash away or through all of them, and too tall and quick to reliably jump over them by reaction speed alone. However, every single one of the knight's attacks is either far easier to dodge or no more difficult to dodge if you're already in midair when he starts winding them up. So, from midair, here's how each of the attacks plays out. Triple Slash. You're already in position to nail pogo over top. In fact, you may even try nail pogoing twice in a row, just because he's that tall and fast. Lunge. Same as Triple Slash. You're already primed for a nail pogo. If he teleports to the opposite side of the arena to do this though, and uses it after you've landed, a Shade Cloak through will work just fine. Counter Stance. You've already jumped away. You're probably not triggering this, but again, if you do, Shade Cloak behind him. Jump isn't coming into effect, as long as you land between each attack. Silver Daggers. The most horizontal dagger is usually the easiest to time your Shade Cloak through, so if you're already in midair, you are in prime position to dodge these. Silver Plunge. Okay, so this attack is why you should always jump away and not just jump straight up, because the version of this attack that teleports in from above would definitely hit you if you're not moving to the side, and you can't jump towards the vessel because if he does the version of this attack that starts with a jump, that'll definitely hit you. So jump away, and when you see him priming this attack, use your double jump to get back on top of him and into our safe spot. Focus. You're already moving away from him, and so should be a simple dash away from safety. Void Barrage. Alright, now this is the one attack that threatens this whole operation, because if he decides to use this attack from especially far away while you're already jumping away from him, a double jump and a dash might not be quite enough to clear the distance to at least nail pogo on top of him. If he does put you in this situation, don't forget you can always fall back onto Sending Dark if you have the soul. Speaking of soul, you'll most likely want to use the vessel's staggers to heal, but be careful. He has hands down the shortest stagger state in the game. And unless you get extremely lucky and he follows up being staggered with a counter stance, you don't have time to heal more than one mask. It can be tempting to try because he always does 2 damage, but just don't get greedy. You'll get that second mask the next time he staggers. Alright, it's time to prove we truly are worthy to take up the mantle of Hollow Knight for ourselves. Here we go. To start off, I love that this guy has a roar that is completely silent. It wasn't the case when we fought him in the Temple of the Black Egg, and he had a very distinct sounding roar, in fact. But now, he calls out, and though we feel the sound, we hear nothing. And this is definitely a contender for one of my favorite boss fights in this entire game. I absolutely love everything about it. The narrative, the music, the visuals. He is just so freaking cool. And, once again, very similar to the Watcher Knights, having figured out pretty much a catch-all trick to beating him once and for all, I am extremely fond of this foe. We get the achievement Soul and Shade for that. And how fitting that I had my soul bound. But because I have elected to do things slowly, we are going to have to dive back in to chase the other bindings, I should say. But for beating the 4th Pantheon, if we hop right up here, we've unlocked a thing. Hit it. And something. There is a whole lot of really not clear, but what that did is unlock a path even higher into Godhome, where we find another spring. This one's sort of private. No one else around to bother us, but that does seem to be all there is. Unless you look very astutely up high, you can just see a wall-jumpable wall, granting passage even higher. And we would get all the way to the top. We find some sort of black seal. Not completely dissimilar from the walls of blackness that we need the Shade Cloak to dash through, but even though we definitely have the Shade Cloak, whatever this is will not allow us entry. There are a couple of things we can find up here. If we drop on down this left wall, we can create a slightly easier shortcut, making it so you don't have to do the really precise double jump to get up top this way. And if we drop up, or drop over down to the right, we find the coolest bench in the entire game. Ah. Apparently a map update, even though you can't possibly see the map of this area. And hit this seal, and it makes this piece of earth, or this piece of architecture, fall down lower, giving us another pretty simple shortcut up to the top. But unfortunately, that's all we can do up there for now. Seems we're missing some sort of piece of the puzzle. Now, I am actually pretty glad that I didn't do that Pantheon with all the bindings, because it lets me show off something that I've actually been wanting to show off for a fair while. We're going to change our charms around a little bit, and we're going to go with this build. This may strike you as a bit of an odd one, having both Grubberfly's Elegy and Fury of the Fallen. Grubberfly's Elegy gives us a bonus for being at full health, Fury of the Fallen for being at just 1 health. And while there is some merit to accounting for multiple situations, That's not the sort of mindset you want to have while heading into these Pantheons. But we're going to go ahead and bind our shell. I'm going to strike myself on the spikes up there and let myself get hit by one of the beams, bringing me down to 1 health, activating Fury of the Fallen. And you may notice we have our sword beams with us still, even at 1 health. This is probably the coolest synergy in the game between 2 charms, is the ability to reactivate Grubberfly's Elegy down at just 1 health when combined with Fury of the Fallen. The downside is you do have to be at 1 health, whoopsies, which does cause some issues. Actually, I changed my mind. I think instead of Long Nail, we're going to go with Quick Slash. And for an enemy that has higher stagger stats like this guy, it just makes him an absolute cakewalk as you just bully him from stagger to stagger to stagger. Now the sword beams that you get from the Fury of the Fallen Grubberfly Elegy combo are stronger than the dang it! I'm being a little too reckless. As I was saying, the sword beams that you get from the Fury of the Fallen sword beams with Grubberfly's Elegy are a little bit stronger than they are normally. I'll show on screen the exact damage values. Now why have I waited until all the way here at episode 45 to actually show off this pretty cool tactic? There's an extra quality to the Fury of the Fallen strategies that I haven't gone over yet. Oh my gosh, he just got shredded. Oh, that was awesome. Basically, just make sure that you are at 1 health by the time you beat White Defender. You don't have to stay at 1 health for the entire Pantheon leading up to it, but as long as you go into White Defender with the Fury of the Fallen bonus intact, or as long as you come out the other side of the White Defender with the bonus intact, you'll see why I've chosen to show this off now. Gosh dang it! There we go. Really cool small detail. Usually, while the knight is at 1 health, he sort of sulks around going, oh, oof. But when he has Fury of the Fallen equipped, he just stays as quiet and intense as always. And we're going to very deliberately not sit on the bench or soak in the tub there. And, oh, interesting. Okay, well, that works a little differently than I thought, but we do lose the Grubberfly's Elegy bonus, but we don't lose the Fury of the Fallen bonus. Oh my gosh, that was so fast. Oh, you're screwed. As I was saying, we don't lose the Fury of the Fallen bonus for having Lifeblood shells. Oh my gosh, that's even faster than the normal cheese. Oh, I love it. I also love this just red slash you get on your nail. And now we have both the insane damage bonus and a little bit of a cushion of error. Technically, you could take advantage of this at any time just by going and visiting some... Oh man, that was so good. By visiting some pools or some Lifeblood cocoons after being at 1 health. But honestly, there's really no super convenient Lifeblood cocoon areas in the game. The closest one is a little bit of a climb up to King's Pass from Dirtmouth, but I think they did that on purpose. Probably didn't want to really encourage the strategy of just kind of going out of your way for Lifeblood cocoons to tank a lot of bosses. So they made them all a little bit out of the way, except for a couple that are specifically right next to boss arenas, which is fine. So anyway, this is one strategy that you can absolutely employ when doing any, I particularly recommend it against any mask binding challenge against the Pantheons, but technically you could use it in any of them. I recommend it for the mask one just because having only 4 masks to begin with makes it really easy to set up. And because Groverfly's Elegy doesn't work, I would absolutely recommend Mark of Pride more, but I couldn't change my charms without healing, so we're where we're at right now.
Thou returned across thy mail with this pure vessel. For what purpose, we can only wonder. Does combat draw thee closer together? Dost thou also desire attunement with the gods? Or dost thou hide some other desire deep within thee?
Alright, it's time for a moment of decision. Do we go in with full health, or keep on with what we got? I think we're going to keep on with what we got. Honestly, if there's one problem that I have with the Fury of the Fallen charm, it's these really loud tendrils that just stick in from the side of the screen no matter what. Like, this is a game that visual clarity is absolutely huge on in most situations. And yet for this, you just have these, like, makes me feel like I'm being drawn into the depths. Purposefully, I'm sure, but still. Whoa. Oh, gosh. Alright, there's that. Oh, nope. Alright, cool. It's a good thing I came in with exactly as much as I did. 1 mask fewer, and we wouldn't have done that. Cool beans. Typically, I would actually do the soul and mask bindings together. Obviously, we weren't actually using a whole lot of soul in that run, but it's really up to you. Just because of how much longer they make all the fights last, the nail and charm bindings are probably the much tougher of the 4. Oh gosh, it feels so weird going back from Quick Slash. It's such a completely different mindset. That's the main reason I rarely use it, because getting used to it feels like a death sentence. It's like playing any game in fast forward using an emulator or something like that. When you go back to normal speed, it just feels so sluggish. I'm not denying that Quick Slash is an extremely powerful charm. You saw what it did to some of these bosses, but as long as there is any reason for me not to wear it coming up ahead, like the charmless runs of these Pantheons, I will avoid it whenever possible. Say, the best thing about this guy is that since you can come straight into him after a lovely little dip in the hot spring, getting set up to absolutely annihilate him with spells is even easier from the get-go. And he's an exceptionally easy boss to farm soul off of even after he's dead, which is very rare. Which makes setting up for Markov to wail on him, or shriek on him as the case may be. And he is highly susceptible to the Abyss Shriek. The issue is on his Ascended and Attuned, and Radiant arenas. He's just not usually in a good position for it. You don't have the luxury of a floor to always position yourself under him. Back again, Godseeker, don't mind me. I feel like I probably should have done the nail binding challenge first instead of soul, just because having my nail bound gives this fight more time to speak for itself, which it absolutely deserves, because I really cannot speak enough good about this boss fight. It is so well designed on every single possible front, and I love it so. Oops. But we should be just about through it already. Yep, he's on his 3rd phase, last third of health. That is something that there is definitely to be said about phases. Sometimes it can make bosses more difficult because they just have more stuff they can throw at you that you might not have already been accustomed to. But in the case of this fight and many others, it also helps you gauge how far along you are in the fight, which is pretty cool. Let's go at him charmless. To me, a charmless run and a nail-bound run are almost interchangeable. On a charmless run, we'll be doing a little more damage with nail and less damage with souls, but ultimately, the boss fights are going to take almost the exact same amount of time across the 2 of them. The biggest difference is the lack, or at least for me personally, is the lack of a Mark of Pride. Oh, White Defender. You get the prize for best effort. Congratulations on working up your sturdiness to the point that you can no longer be staggered. It is now your greatest weakness. The irony. Little bit of a cool detail, you can actually use the Crystal Dash to collect all the life seeds if you're already full enough up on soul that you don't feel the need to take a dip in the pond. So this is probably the main problem with these lifeblood masks, is that they really don't tend to last. At least speaking on a personal level, I tend to use them all up on the either first or second boss after the room. So while there's no denying that they are a help, I think they just make me overconfident. I always find it funny that his shell has the thoughts and not the maggot, even after he's left it. Ah! One cool detail I do want to mention about the Soul Master and the Soul Tyrant fights. We've seen that once you're down in the Hall of Gods looking at a pedestal of a god you've yet to unlock, it'll give you a sort of obtuse hint as to where they'll be found in the greater world. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what the one for the Soul Master says, but it says something along the lines of, "I wait immortal at the heart of the sanctum." But then, when you actually fight him and read his placard down there, he is listed as the god of mortality, not immortality. There's a lot of really dark stuff tonally revolving around the Soul Sanctum, and I feel like that's a really nice little cherry to put on top of everything that we know about it already. I made note of the fact that he cannot be hit with the Dream Nail in his bio, but I haven't drawn any specific attention to it until now. It was the same case back when we fought his degraded form in the Temple of the Black Egg, and it's completely unique to him. He still flashes white, but you get no soul for it, and he does not yield any thoughts. And while we don't know exactly why that would be right now, it's definitely something I want to keep in mind. But there we have it, all 4 bindings, albeit one at a time. But the only difference is that we don't get the fancy golden glowy stuff, but I am just fine with that. I already accomplished more than I expected to. But that fills in every notch down here surrounding the Lifeblood room. And as you may have come to expect, that increases the amount of Lifeblood masks up to 5 when we get to the halfway points in the Pantheon. Which I will fully admit would absolutely make it easier, if only a little bit, to tackle the All Bindings challenge here on Pantheon 4, but nope, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do, however, is head on down to the Hall of Gods and take on the Pure Vessel just a few more times. We don't need to see Attuned, considering we've already done that, but Ascended changes very little. He now has 1,850 HP, and his phases still scale by percentage, not by exact numbers. But other than that, it's just the same fight, only with less margin for error. Now, the strategies that I gave against Attuned are pretty much the epitome of what I think is personally best against this guy, though I definitely am taking a little more damage than perhaps I ought to. So that's gonna carry us straight on over to Radiant. Honestly, I can't imagine that even if you've gotten all the charms, the deep focus, quick focus, that you got through that fight just scraping by and healing. So frankly, I think if you can beat him on Ascended, it's not too much of a bridge to beat him on Radiant. Though many people consider this one of the most difficult Radiant fights in the game, contrary to ones like Markoth and the Oblobbles, this is one fight that you can learn and just respond correctly to everything that he can do. There's basically an objectively correct response to everything he throws at you, and as long as you know what to do, you will get through it just fine. Unlike how I just did. Now, on the subject of him being impossible to Dream Nail, that was not always the case. In every official release version, it has been, but when the Godmaster DLC was being playtested, he was fully Dream Nailable, and he had the following Dream Nail dialogue. he could say, or think, I should say, do not think, do not speak, do not hope, or simply do not, as well as, oh gosh, that's not one of his thoughts, as well as the simple ... similar to what happens when you dream nail the broken vessel and the lost kin. Now take this with a grain of salt. Anything that didn't make it into the final official release of the game should not be considered canon, but it is definitely interesting to think of what sort of lore went into the pure vessel. Oh gosh. I don't have the answers for you as to why those might have been his thoughts quite yet, but we are definitely getting close. It's almost to the point where I have to just stop putting off addressing the lore, because we are coming so close on the ending. No! Oh, I thought I was close enough that I could just spam it out. I was doing so well. Now, even though I am struggling a bit, I really don't see any reason to overcharm here. With the strategies that I use, there's really nothing I want that I don't already have equipped. Gaining more soul with Soul Eater wouldn't help too much. We don't need to ever really use Nail Arts, because even with Nailmaster's Glory, he just moves too fast to really justify him. So I really can't think of what else I'd fill that space with. But that's okay. You don't always need to overcharm just because you can. Case in point. That finishes us off there. Pure and radiant. And on a final note, let's catch up on a couple journal entries. Sagely God of the cunning and bold, sharpen our nails and show us the odds. O greatest of masters, we wish to behold the one still greater, the God of gods. Deepest silence in holy shell, given nail and named a night, bound by chain and egg and spell, hear our plea, reveal thy light. Now sitting at 112% in the next episode, we are going to find one final piece of the puzzle necessary for truly beating this game. And then we're going to do just that. See you guys then.